I bought this SOG Trident knife about 2 years ago and I've been carrying it every day since. I decided I'm going to go ahead and do a full review of this knife, but before I do, I decided I'd do a good full cleaning on it. I noticed it's getting a little bit of grit inside of it from carrying it around all the time. Because this is a spring assisted knife, and also due to the Arc-Actuator system, there is a lot of small pieces inside of it and it can be a little intimidating to disassemble. You may also avoid the SOG warranty on the knife if you do decide to open it up. I prefer to service all of my own stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up and give it a good full cleaning. To start with, we are going to want a well-lit and clean workspace. We will be working with some small parts, so a magnetic parts tray is a good idea to keep it all together. You will also need a 1.5 and a 2mm wrench or screwdriver bits as well. Since this is a spring-loaded knife, it's usually a good idea to tape the edge so that you're less likely to cut yourself while handling the parts. So to do that, I'm just going to use this little bit of masking tape, and we're going to tape that off. This is generally a good idea anytime you're working with anything sharp and you're doing a lot of disassembly or work with it where you don't want to accidentally cut yourself during the handling. We will start by making sure that the knife is in the open position. That way that'll take the tension off the internal spring, and then we can go ahead and remove the Allen bolts. There are 5 bolts around the edge of the handle, including the pocket clip. And then there is one more additional bolt that is in the hinge itself. After the bolts are all removed, we should be able to separate the handle. Be careful not to lose any of the small parts on this step. There are a couple small parts that are related to the Arc-Actuator locking mechanism right here. They have caused some confusion for others on Reassembly. One of them is this very small spring that's actually a U shape that goes inside this groove right here. The other very small piece that people tend to forget where it came from is relation to the safety actuation lever. And if you pull this safety actuation lever off the handle, you'll see there's a very small ball bearing in this little spot right there. What that does is that acts as a detent on the 2 holes for when the safety comes up and down. I had also added this piece of rubber insulation that you see right here that I'll pop out. That's not factory, that is something I added. I wanted to deactivate the safety for my own personal use, and I'll talk about more why I did that in my review video. So I'm just going to set that off to the side as well. The knife blade should now lift out of the handle. When you do so, be careful that there is a couple Teflon rings. And you'll see that one Teflon ring goes on top, and then there's another one that was on the bottom. And this also then frees up one of our springs. Note how the spring's currently laying. It drops into that groove right there. Just like that. Take your other piece of Teflon out. The Teflons are one of the important things to get nice and clean. They are what gives you that smooth sliding action when you're opening and closing the knife. This is part of the arc lock actuator right there. We have one spring, and then we have this piece right here that's got a pin. That pin is going to face up. Put the spring in there. And I think that's probably enough. That's probably as far as we need to take this apart to clean it. There are a couple pins. If you do have these pins come apart on you, one goes into this hole right here, and one goes into this hole right here, and then there's a larger pin up here. I'm going to go ahead and drop this ball bearing out so I don't lose it. It's probably going to want to fall out when I go to clean it. There it goes. Notice it's a very, very small, extremely small ball bearing. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of all-purpose cleaner, and I'm just going to wipe down all the internal parts and surfaces. Get as much of that lint, dirt, grit, dust, and all that stuff out of there. Okay, there, that looks pretty clean. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and start reassembly. I'm going to go ahead and place one of our Teflon washers in there. We're going to take our blade, and we're going to take the opener spring, and we're going to drop it into this pin on the side of the hinge right there. And then we're going to carefully place the other half of the spring in the groove, and we want to kind of gently work it down into its recess. You do want to be pretty careful here. If you aren't real careful, what happens is you can get that Teflon washer hung up with that hinge spring, and that'll make it open improperly. So get it to all fit down nice and tight, and then just kind of peek in there and make sure your washer is still on top and your spring is down inside the hole. Once you get that, go ahead and drop the other Teflon washer on there. Then we're just going to take a piece to the lock mechanism, and we're going to pop that in place there. And then we're going to take the spring for that, and we're going to slowly insert it behind it. Hold your finger here just in case it tries to pop out. It may sometimes try to pop out on you. Get that down in there nice and good. Then the next thing we're going to want to do is take our Arc-Actuator lever, and we're going to put that on that top pin, and we should see that it lines up like that. If you put your finger across this, you can test that the movement engages. It should. I wouldn't move it too much, because if you move it too much, it's going to knock it out of place. But you want that to fit nice and loose like that. We also wanted to make sure we get that little metal spring, and we put that right here. What that looks like that is that's a metal slide to act as a guide for your Arc Assist lever. And it's not in the groove right. It's very tiny. It's kind of a little difficult to get it back into the groove correctly. What you do, it'll look like that, which this thing will then slide over on top of. And the next thing we're going to do is take our safety lever, and we're going to drop it in below the spring there and onto its pin. Now, right now the safety is below the spring, so the safety is off. And what we want to do is we want to take that little tiny ball bearing, and we want to drop that into the bottom pocket on that safety lever. It's kind of difficult because it's so small, but just get it in there, drop it right there like that on the bottom piece. We make sure all our pins are in place. They look like they are. Then we're going to take the other half of our enclosure, or the other half of the case. We're going to flip it over, and we're going to slowly line it up with everything and just kind of drop it down on top. You may have to move this lever over a little bit if it's over too far. Oh, I heard my ball bearing drop. You want to kind of listen. If you hear that ball drop, that means you're going to have to reset it back into its pocket. Just like that. And let's go ahead and give this another try. That was a little better. We want to firmly wiggle it all around. And if everything's lining up right, it should close up nice and tight. And let's go ahead and start putting our screws back in. What you may notice is if you over tighten this, it won't open smooth. So you want to make sure you get this tight enough that it won't come loose on you, but not so tight that it clamps the blade speed or keeps the blade speed down. So right about there seems to be good. You want to get that nice flip. Go ahead and put in the rest of our screws. And do another function check with it off. See if we can gauge our safety. Safety works. Make sure your lock works good, and then you can still close. Our next video is going to be a full review of this knife. If you want to see more stuff like this, like, favorite, and check out our website.